Hello, and well, I'm a Pokemon fan. I mean, like, look at all the games that I have. Now, I do have some problems with the series, that being that it can be very linear. I mean, like, for example, if you're doing the main story, like, there's only one way to go, and that way could be really confusing, or can be very annoying. And well, do I know any of those parts? No, no, not really, but I do have those problems still. Now, Pokemon has a lot of areas that would be great as an open world. And do you see where I'm going? Wait, did I do this last time? Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the newest mainline entries inside the series, and this game came out moderately quick after the release of Pokemon Legends Arceus, which that game released in January, and this game released in November. Now, Scarlet and Violet were the first mainline open world games in the series. Legends Arceus is a sub game, which is still open world, but I'd say Scarlet and Violet was the first true open world game. Now, this isn't the first time that Pokemon has experimented with making some open world games. In fact, Sword and Shield, which came out on Switch inside 2019, that actually had their own version of open worlds, except that the game wasn't really open worlds. It had wild areas, which those areas are basically just like an open world. Now, why would they do this instead of make it entirely open world? I don't know. Now, making a good open world game can take a while, as well. You need to have enough content to justify having it as an open world. From what I've heard, Pokemon Legends Arceus seems to nail this, but it does feel a bit empty in some places from what I've heard, but I've never played it, so I can't say that. Now, from what I've heard, Pokemon Legends Arceus seems to nail this, but from what people have said, there are places where it feels a bit empty and barren, but I can't say anything because I have never played it. Now, that game probably had a good deadline. It was probably because it was a new IP, and so they had much more time to make it. Now, with Legends Arceus being a good introduction to a true open world Pokemon game, fans were excited to see what would happen with Scarlet and Violet. I mean, like, with Sword and Shield and Arceus, they've had a bit of experience with making open world games. Now, people were expecting this game to be the greatest Pokemon game of all time, and when the game released, yeah, when the game came out, it was buggy, and by buggy, I mean really buggy. Now, when I got the game in Christmas of 2022, the game crashed upon me playing it first. So that gave me a pretty good impression of what to come. Now it was December, and well, some updates and patches did come out, so I can't really blame them. But come on, some patches came out. How did the game still crash? In fact, these were so bad is that IGN gave it a 6 out of 10, and it's a Pokemon game, a AAA title, which usually gets around 8 or 7 out of 10, which is already pretty low for itself. But if you ignore the glitches, it is said is that this game has the greatest story in the Pokemon series, or the greatest in a while. Now, Pokemon, I guess, is known for its story, but more known for its RPGness. And so, hearing that it has a pretty great story, well, that's pretty interesting. Now, back to the question, what went wrong with the game? We don't really know much about the development. Besides the game crashing upon my first playthrough, I didn't really see any bugs or glitches that could, sour my gameplay experience, just some technical hiccups, which I will go into later. But from what I've saw online, Scarlet and Violet launched in a horrible state, and I wonder why. How did this happen? Like, what went wrong? But it was most likely because of one thing that I had been cursing lots of AAA developers rushed a deadline. I'm gonna give you one example, Redfall. So I'm guessing is that Scarlet and Violet began production when during development of Flood's Arceus, and I'm guessing is that that game had so much attention is that they couldn't work on Scarlet and Violet entirely. So then after they finished production or say developing on Arceus, they had not a lot of time to finish Scarlet and Violet on a game of that massive scale. And so what they did was that they probably rushed it and didn't tend to a bug test. Now Redfall came out I'd say I think in April, and well, that game is a next gen title, priced at $70. Now what you get for $70? You get a game that looks like a Xbox 360 game on a next gen console. You get a 30 FPS lock, which the Xbox is more than capable of running up to I think 120 FPS, and you get once again bugs and glitches. Now, from what I've read, Redfall for half of its life was a pay-to-win loot box, and well, it's still inside the game, and people are pretty tired of this. So I think Xbox is going to lose. Now, the other game, Pokemon Violet Arceus, had the developments of I think 3 years, starting in 2018, which is also when Pokemon Sword and Shield finished developments, and that game began developing inside 2016 after release of Pokemon Sun and Moon, which were the last only brand new games released for the 3DS that were Pokemon, or I should say a mainline. I'm guessing is that Scarlet and Violet began production when during development of Flood's Arceus, and I'm guessing is that that game had so much attention is that they couldn't work on Scarlet and Violet entirely. So then after they finished production or say developing on Arceus, they had not a lot of time to finish Scarlet and Violet on a game of that massive scale. And so what they did was that they probably rushed it and didn't tend to bug test it. Bug testing is very crucial to a game, as well. If they don't have any bug testers, so your game could come out like every game now. Not trying to trash on every developer, just that lots of AAA developers have been messing up and giving us some underwhelming experiences after years of delays. Now with Scarlet and Violet, I think I have some ideas on why it was so buggy. With every mainline Pokemon game, there has been toys, anime, and a bunch more stuff that has came out probably a couple of days to even months after the game's release. Now these things are not popped out immediately when the game comes out. These spend months in a factory just waiting for the game to launch. And well, these things have deadlines. And well, since Pokemon is such a massive company, they have to abide by these deadlines or else they miss out on millions, probably even billions of profits. Think of it. Pokemon has cartoons, plushies, their own theme park coming to Universal Studios, their own failed theme park, their own games, the trading cards, side games, cartoons, and the list goes on. Now, with this stuff, these need to be released sometime, and well, I'm guessing is that Pokemon push themselves into a deadline which they cannot abide to, except that these companies who make it are not budging on the deadline, which means that they had to make the game come out on that day, despite what state the game is in anyways. Once again, delaying is good, despite how angry you'll get is because you have to wait a couple of months to get a game. They need it. The developers need it. In fact, Tears of the Kingdom was finished in March of 2022, but the last year of the game's development was actually went to giving it polish and to kind of get all the big bugs out of the game. And I'm glad they did that. Is because the game is brilliant. The game, in fact, I'm not even sure how they made it with how bad some Switch ports have gotten. For example, WWE 2K18, which ran horribly. The game is basically impossible, so it's either they sell their soul to the devil or they're pretty talented. It's probably the first one. People tend to blame the hardware the game's on, the Switch, for the game running so poorly. And, well, I'd say that it's not the Switch's fault. It's the developer's fault. Not trying to blame a Game Freak or put any hate on them. It's just that it's kind of their fault. The Switch can handle open world games. For example, Breath of the Wild, a launch game, Tears of the Kingdom, the Xenoblade series, and a bunch more. These are, should I say, exclusives, and well, they run perfect on the Switch. Sure, yes, there are bugs, and we'll get some technical hiccups like some slow frame rate, but these games do not have game-breaking bugs. Sure, yeah, these games can take a while. It's because they need to be, optimized and keep a low file down. It's because, for example, NBA 2K23 is like, I don't know, 50 gigs on Switch, which is like not even a lot for the PS5. The PS5 one is like 100 gigs. In fact, Mortal Kombat 1, not the, OG from the 90s, like the one that was just announced, on the Switch is 100 gigabytes. And the game will probably run poorly. That's enough of talking trash about the game. Let's just get into what went wrong, or should I say, what I want to talk about. Now, this is the first true open world game for the Pokemon mainline series, and so they had high expectations, especially with the world. Now, Pokemon can have a beautiful world. Now, from past games, you can't really see it because you're inside, like a sort of a top-down perspective, almost. And well, with the bump up in hardware, you get, new towns, more Pokemon. In fact, there's one cool thing that happened with the Pokemon series on Switch. Starting with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, they can have Pokemon appear that are actually on the screen. This because in past games, these were not even on the screen. It's because of the hardware. They would just take you by surprise. And well, this can work pretty good. It feels more natural, and well, it's even easier to dodge them now. Now, how do they pull it off inside Scarlet and Violet? The game's world, or I'm sure say towns, they kind of feel empty. Now, once again, this is because of the game's performance. Less people on the screen means that the Switch can breathe easier at night. But, some of these towns feel abandoned, almost, with like 4 or 5 people there. And, well, that kind of sucks, is because the game, Pokemon, is supposed to be a world with everyone, in them, especially Pokemon. In fact, there's a patch that came out that means that Pokemon now appear less in the wild, which I say in the Paldea region, which is where the game takes place in. I mean, like, I know why from a technical standpoint, is because the Switch just cannot handle it. That kind of sucks if you do not know, is because that means that it's even harder to hunt for Pokemon if you're trying to, do a true completionist. Speaking of which, I can understand why would you want to complete the whole entire Pokédex of Pokemon game. I mean, like, with past Pokemon games where they're more linear, I can see that. But now, you have these huge open world games, and that's going to take forever to beat and even complete entirely. Alright, back to trashing the game. Now, as we all know, which is probably what you know from the intro of this video, the game runs horrible. That was at launch. Now, the game runs fun. But let's sort of, I'd say, kind of dive into the inner workings of this game. Now, the game runs at 30 FPS, which, we are all used to. In fact, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are both locked on 30 FPS, and much more. And, this probably is because, it's a huge open world game. Why would you care about 60 FPS? It's an open world game. Now, with Scarlet and Violet, you're probably never going to see any type of 30 FPS. It's because the game dips in frame rate a lot. Now, you may say that, I'm sort of ranting about something useless, and you may say that, and I'll say, you're right. So yeah, those are my feelings about Scarlet and Violet. Or should I say Violet, because I only have Violet. And, is the game good? Yes. Is the game bad? No. Now that may contradict from what I've said. In fact, it's probably the whole entire reason why this video is because I just trashed on it for like, I don't know, 10 100 minutes. But if you look past like the glaring technical issues and its low frame rate and pop-ins and load-ins, you can find a very fun game within that. Yes. Bye.